9.89 seconds. Say that number out loud because in one afternoon it just rewrote 15 years of sprinting history, and the man who ran it was working at a regional airport 6 months ago. His name is Sam Blaskowski, and he just became the fastest white sprinter to ever step on a track. No Division I offer, no scholarship, no famous program behind him, just a Division III kid from Wisconsin who taught himself technique from YouTube videos in his spare time. And now the entire track and field world is trying to figure out what just happened. Here's the part that should stop you in your tracks. When a reporter asked him how it felt to break a record that had stood for a decade and a half, he did not celebrate. He did not soak it in. He looked at the camera and said, "I did just run 9.8, which is really fast, but I don't think we've peaked yet." Read that again. The fastest white man who has ever lived on a track just told the world he is not done. He believes this is the floor, not the ceiling, and if that gave you chills, do me a quick favor before we go any further. Hit like on this video and subscribe to Speed Academics right now, because this story is only getting started, and you do not want to miss where it goes from here. Okay, back to it. So how does a guy nobody recruited end up here? Rewind 6 months. Sam is clocking shifts at a small airport in Wisconsin, saving every dollar he can with one goal in mind: get to Florida and chase this seriously. No fanfare, no sponsors, just a plan and a paycheck. His grandparents happen to live a mile from the stadium where he would eventually train, which almost feels like the universe setting up the story ahead of time. And then it happened. Not a slow climb from 10 flat down through the 9.90s the way it usually goes. He skipped that whole stage completely. One afternoon at a small, mostly unknown meet in Tennessee, he dropped from 10.05 straight to 9.89, just like that. A time that only 299 human beings have ever run faster than in the entire recorded history of the sport. A time that would have matched Noah Lyles for a bronze medal at the last World Championships. Naturally, the internet did what the internet does. It asked the obvious question: was that real, or was that a fluke against a field that was not world class? Because here is the truth nobody wants to say out loud. Running fast in Tennessee against regional competition is one thing. Running fast in front of 50,000 people in Rome, or Zurich, or Monaco with the best sprinters alive standing 2 lanes over is an entirely different sport. That is the world he is about to step into. The Diamond League, the highest level of track and field on the planet outside the Olympics itself. And the names waiting for him there are not gatekeepers you look up to for inspiration. They are killers. Marcel Jacobs, the Olympic champion, a man who ran 9.80 in a Tokyo final with the entire planet watching and did not blink. Ferdinand Omanyala, 9.84, the fastest man in African history. Oblique Seville, 9.82, the man who beat Noah Lyles on Lyles' home turf in Jamaica. These are not names that end up on motivational posters. These are names that end careers. And here is what should genuinely worry his competition. Every single one of those men has already proven they can deliver their best time when the pressure is at its absolute peak. Jacobs did it in an Olympic final. Seville did it in a hostile stadium in Jamaica with the crowd against him. Sam Blaskowski has done this exactly once in lane 4 on an ordinary afternoon with a thin crowd and almost no cameras. So the real question is not whether he belongs in the conversation. The 9.89 already settled that argument. The real question is whether he can reproduce it on the biggest stage in the sport against men who have already been tested there and passed. But before you write him off as untested, there is something you need to know. Sam is not walking into that environment blind. Every single morning in Florida, he trains alongside Kenny Bednarek, one of the fastest 200-meter runners on the planet, a man who has run 9.94 in an Olympic final himself. He trains next to Sha'Carri Richardson, arguably the most electric sprinter in the country right now, and he trains under Dennis Mitchell, the same coach who helped build both of them into who they are today. Think about what that actually means. The men he is about to line up against in a packed European stadium are the same caliber of athlete he races against in practice every single day with no cameras and no crowd. He already knows what it feels like to be surrounded by that level of speed. He is not stepping into the deep end for the first time. He has been swimming in it for months, and that is exactly what makes his own words so unsettling. I don't think we've peaked yet. This is a man who trains daily with Olympic finalists and still believes there is more speed sitting in his legs waiting to be unlocked. So what is his ceiling? Genuinely, what do you think he runs next? Drop your number in the comments, because I want to see how this comment section ages. Now, let's be fair, because this is where a lot of people get carried away. Training and racing are not the same animal. What happens on that Florida track stays on that Florida track. Nobody outside that group actually knows if Sam is holding his own against Bednarek or getting quietly dropped every single rep. Nobody knows if that 9.89 in Tennessee was the first step of something enormous, or a once-in-a-lifetime peak that will never repeat itself. And sprinting has a brutal, well-documented pattern. An unknown athlete runs one shocking time at a small meet. The internet loses its mind. The comparisons start flying, and then that athlete shows up at a real meet against a real field, and the time simply does not repeat because the pressure is different, the nerves are different, and the entire world is suddenly watching and waiting for you to either confirm you're real or confirm you got lucky. And here's the detail that makes this even harder to predict. Going into that race in Tennessee, Sam had not finished higher than third all season. He had not improved his personal best across his previous 5 races. Nobody, not even the people who watched him train every single week, saw this coming. That unpredictability is thrilling to watch as a fan, but it also means nobody, maybe not even Sam himself, actually knows what happens the next time he steps onto a track that matters. And his own timeline is not modest. He is not talking about maybe competing internationally someday, down the road, if things go well. He has already said publicly that he is targeting Diamond League meets in Europe this season. He has the 2027 World Championship circled. He has the 2028 Los Angeles Olympics in his sights. That is an extremely aggressive plan for a man with exactly one world-class race on his resume. 1, which means the margin for error is close to 0, because in this sport, one flat season can flip the entire narrative overnight. One race where the time does not show up and suddenly the story stops being about an underdog who broke through and starts being about a guy who got lucky once in Tennessee and could never repeat it. That is the razor's edge Sam Blaskowski is walking right now, whether he fully realizes it or not. And yet, come back to the number, because it does not stop being insane the more you sit with it. 9.89 seconds, only 299 human beings out of every person who has ever lived and ever raced have run that time or faster with a legal wind. The men ahead of him on that list are not simply elite athletes. They are some of the most physically extraordinary humans our species has ever produced when it comes to raw, top-end speed. And right now, Sam sits at number 2 in America for 2026 and tied for number 2 in the entire world this season. Walk into a Diamond League final with that ranking, and the field around you includes men who have run 9.8 something themselves, men who have stood on Olympic and World Championship podiums. His time earns him a lane in that race. On paper, he belongs there. Now comes the part nobody can fake, proving it in real time, under real lights, in front of a real crowd. And there's one more detail worth sitting with. His coach Dennis Mitchell did not just clean up his starting block technique or his drive phase off the line. What that training group actually rebuilt was the back half of his race, the stretch from 60 meters to the finish, which is where elite races are genuinely won or lost. That used to be exactly where Sam faded. That was the gap between him and the world-class tier. But in that race in Tennessee, from 60 meters onward, he held his form better than every single man in that field. He did not fade. He extended. He pulled away from the pack when everyone else was tightening up. If that back half has genuinely become a weapon instead of a weakness, then 9.89 was never his ceiling. It might just be his floor. So bring it all the way back to where this started. A kid from Wisconsin nobody recruited. A kid who learned technique from YouTube videos in between airport shifts, saving up just to afford a shot at this dream most people assumed was already over. A kid who walked into a training group filled with Olympic medalists and held his own morning after morning with no cameras rolling. A kid who showed up in Tennessee with zero momentum all season and ran one of the fastest times in the history of the human species. Now he is about to walk into a Diamond League stadium and line up against the exact men the system said he would never be good enough to compete with. The men who got the scholarships, the men who got the facilities, the coaching staff, the exposure, the entire pathway that Sam Blaskowski never had access to. He is going to stand in that lineup, look left, look right, and see Bednarek and Jacobs and Seville, men who have already proven themselves on the sport's biggest stages. And then the gun is going to fire, and he is going to run. Not to prove a point to the system that overlooked him, not for revenge against the programs that never called. He has already said in his own words that he would rather be known as the second fastest man in the world than not be in that conversation at all. He is not running away from anything. He is running towards something, and he has already told you out loud exactly what he believes is waiting for him when he crosses that line. I don't think we've peaked yet, so here's the real question. When Sam Blaskowski lines up in his first Diamond League race against the fastest men alive, does he medal? And if he actually pulls it off, does that finally force the mainstream sports world to start taking track and field seriously again? Yes or no? Drop it in the comments below, because I genuinely think we are watching the very beginning of a story people are going to be talking about for years. If you made it this far, subscribe to Speed Academics so you don't miss what happens next, and let me know in the comments what time you think he runs in his first Diamond League race. I read every single one, and I want to see your predictions before this thing plays out.